Let's listen to the final leg of Marianne North's journey. Hello and welcome to the Treasured Page. I'm Melanie and this is our quiet crafting space. And what a wonderful way to spend a cold and damp Sunday than with a hot cup of tea, which is how this project all began. It started with a hot cup of tea and a little idea. But my journey started before then when I picked up this book from an old bookshop. And I was looking for craft books, I was looking for nature books, I was looking at quality in the paper. But when I opened this book and I saw all the beautiful paintings and pictures, I immediately thought I could make a journal out of that. And I didn't think any more than that. I just, a quick flip through, I thought, wow, those are fabulous. And I just put it in my bag and then it sat in my craft room for months. And whilst it sat in my craft room, it felt like there was some sort of Jumanji beating drum that I should be looking at this book. And yet what she did over her lifetime was nothing short of incredible. And if you would like to follow along with the whole story of this as I read this book out to you, everything here is in the playlist and you can follow along with the Ephemera playlist and the Marianne North stories right from the beginning, all in the playlist here. I'll leave the link below in the description and you'll be able to watch them in sequence if you haven't been following along from the beginning. But this is the concluding chapter that we're about to hear. So this book is written by Laura Ponsonby and she worked with Kew for 20 years as a lecturer. So she knows a thing or two about Marianne North and all the botany behind the plants that Marianne was painting and bringing back to show Kew Gardens. This is the book that is recommended to be read alongside with the first book I've just shown you. And this is the book that I've dipped into just to clarify for my own intrigue, my own investigation and being nosy into this wonderful woman's life. This is one of her journals. It's an abridged version of her memoirs, and so therefore it's quite easy to read because some of the chapters aren't very long. So Marianne settled down and she wrote her memoirs in Gloucestershire, and they were so extensive that an abridged version has been produced of the original book. So this is that. And it's The Vision of Eden. But if you are looking for it, if you really, really have been sucked into the story of Marianne North as I have, then there is an older version of A Vision of Eden, and it has a picture of a monkey on the front. So if you find the one with the monkey on the front, buy that one because that has got nicer paper inside, particularly if you're planning on using the papers for a journal if you wanted to cut it up. Although I would strongly urge you to read the stories first because it is an incredible journey that you will be going on with Marianne. And it is a real heroic journey of strength and wonder, urging us all to keep going. So grab your glue stick, your bone folder and your ink blending tool because we're going to be crafting along as I delve once more into the journey of Marianne North's wonderful adventures. And with the comfort of this incredible book, I have created my own quiet crafting space within the journal. A place where I can come and play and enjoy and be inspired by the stories of her life. And I can open this book now and feel a sense of freedom between the pages on days when I feel like I would love to escape to the tropics, to Java, to Sri Lanka, to Canada, America, and all the places that we've been, South Africa, India, Brazil, the many, many places that she has taken us on. Australia, Tasmania, New Zealand, the Seychelles. It's all here and it's wonderful, and I've taken you along for the ride, and I'm so pleased that you have joined me as we embark once more on an adventure in England in 1888. You'll see here I've got an ephemera pack here from the digital kit Mushrooms in Time by Clee Black Creations, and this is the kit that I have been using throughout the journal. This is the ephemera portion of it, whereas these were the pages. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start adding in some of these pages, and the theme of the mushrooms was relevant to Marianne's story, as it turned out, because it was the start of her artistic adventure when her mother sadly passed away when she was only in her 20s. Marianne took herself off and went and painted in watercolour mushrooms and the study of fungi for a whole year. And it was this mania of painting that then took her forwards when her father passed away, when she was in her very late 30s. She then went off all around the world painting. And so this is a story of overcoming grief just as much as it is an artistic journey. So the North Gallery at Kew is a dedication to somebody overcoming their grief. And this pioneering woman was so keen to bring the story of her life to everybody so that we can enjoy and be inspired by nature and what we have on planet Earth. So, without further ado, I shall be using the digital kit. I shall be going through the pages, I'll be tidying up things, and I will putting everything in its rightful place as I see fit. But the journal won't be done because it is able to take somebody else's story, or perhaps it will have Marianne's story, maybe written out at a later date. Maybe that will be for me if I want to write my memoirs, if I want to write about my journey, telling her story and everything that went on for me in that time. And perhaps you've been inspired to make your own Marianne North Journal, and how everything seems to be connected to Kew Gardens when we start talking about botanics in the Victorian era, and how that then leads on to the Edwardians and what they did for us and around the world with their seed collecting and plant identification. It was all very serious business in the 1800s. Marianne had been determined to find a quiet country place with a garden where she could end her days, far from the maddening crowd of callers and lawn tennis. And in summer of 1886, Marianne found the exact place, a charming old stone house with a garden, fields and an orchard, situated in Alderley, a remote village hidden in the folds of the Cotswolds in Gloucestershire. There she set about making the most perfect garden in England, which she stocked with plants from many parts of the world. Everyone provided her specimens. Kew sent her all kinds of unusual plants. Her nieces brought back pines from Switzerland, and others, such as Gertrude Jekyll and Canon Ellacombe, gave her contributions from their gardens. Marianne found a sundial in a neighbouring garden and put it up as a monument to Mr. Henry. Mr. Henry being, of course, the last survivor of her opossum mice. This loyal friend and travelling companion was a small marsupial that she had collected in Tasmania. John Aldington Symonds, Marianne's brother-in-law, wrote an epitaph to this well-travelled mouse, which can still be seen today on a brass plate attached to the sundial, to honour Mr. Henry the opossum mouse. Even though Marianne had travelled the world and seen the most diverse and exotic vegetation, she is still able to write, "No life is so charming as a country one in England, and no flowers are sweeter or more lovely than the primroses, cowslips, bluebells, and violets which grow in abundance all around me here. Marianne loved to garden when she had the strength, and she sat for hours writing her memoirs, which she called Recollections of a Happy Life. She had compiled the information from all of her very many journals and from letters to friends. In fact, friends had been asked to forward on the letters so that she could glean all the information and get the detail right. It was something she had been working on for some years though, and back in 1875, while suffering from a heavy cold, she had written to a watercolourist friend, Barbara Badichon. I am a damp, unwholesome body, disagreeable to myself and friends, but mean to crush the demon, and meanwhile sit by the fire scribbling about warmer places. And we also know that she was writing her memoirs in 1877 because she informed Dr. Burnell when in India that she was scribbling, and she remarked, "It is the most amusing work, even if it never comes to anything more." But of course it did come to something. Recollections of a Happy Life was edited by her sister Catherine later and published after Marianne's death. In the last years, Marianne was increasingly isolated by her deafness and tormented by her nerves, those mocking voices which never ceased. In 1888, liver disease showed itself, and she was thought to be dying. But Marianne rallied, and strangely, as the disease progressed, her tormentors left her, and she was able to carry on with her memoirs, writing, scribbling, and getting the information down as quickly as she could in some fury to be able to publish her work. It was very important to her, and she sent a whole manuscript of text to the publishers, to which she was told that there was far too much. There would be 4 volumes worth, which could be quite overpowering for their everyday reader. But Marianne was unperturbed. She wanted every detail kept, and had to make some sacrifices and some edits, which she was furiously trying to do. In 1889, she had written, "I merely exist from one operation to another, and I may cease to exist any day. But I do not dread it." By the summer of 1890, she was, however, no stronger, and she was given turtle soup, which did no good. But Marianne never feared death, while under the heels of a horse in Java, or shooting the rapids in a fragile canoe down the Sarawak River, or cracking her skull against a wall in Japan, having been thrown from a rickshaw. She had had her fair share of terrifying moments. In the spring of 1890, Marianne was still working on her book. She kept herself busy with all the stories of her wonderful, full life, exploring the world. Her amazing scientific and botanical discoveries along the way, having plants named after her and meeting so many people and influencing so many others. Her gallery was an utter triumph, with many people visiting. But on the 30th of August, 1890, Marianne very sadly passed away and was buried in a quiet country churchyard at Alderley, where she lived. She was aged only 59 years old. It is at Kew Gardens, however, that Marianne is best remembered. Professor Mangum wrote that a visit to this gallery brings home, as perhaps nothing else can in a short while, the astonishing array of beautiful colours, forms exhibited by the ever-changing mantle of the earth. Although opinions may differ on the merits of Marianne's paintings, what is quite certain is that the gallery is unique. There is simply nothing like it anywhere in the world. As Wilfrid Blunt once wrote, "The North Gallery is not so much a museum as a museum piece, something as whimsical, as extraordinary, as period, and as precious as the Albert Memorial or the Watts Mortuary Chapel at Crompton, and it must never, never be touched." Happily, Aunt Pop's gallery remains virtually unchanged, and even today, with easy travel and colour photography, it still excites and brightens the day of many a visitor to Kew. Marianne North had died before her book was published and her story was out to the world. She had left instructions to her sister and told her, "Edit what you will, but whatever you do, do not alter the sequence." And so Catherine set about, having the book published, although it was heavily edited, to allow the reader to be able to get through an entire book. And the book that I have been reading from was written by Laura Ponsonby. She was a former guide and lecturer at the Royal Botanical Gardens of Kew for 20 years, giving regular talks on Marianne North, on whom she had made a special study. And you can, of course, read the Recollections of a Happy Life, the edited memoirs of Marianne North, but there is also an abridged version too, which is called The Vision of Eden. And if you can get a copy of that, I think you'll enjoy it because it is recommended to read alongside Laura Ponsonby's book. So there are 2 books that you can get in conjunction. It's been an absolute pleasure reading this to you, dear subscribers of the Treasured Page. And once more, feel the wind in our hair and the warmth of the tropics on our skin, and that wonderful sense of adventure that Marianne North has given each and every one of us, urging us to explore, to be creative, and to keep going, no matter what. Well, what an incredible story, and what a wonderful journey we've all been on with the epic Marianne North story. And who knew from a humble book that we thought we were going to be crafting with, but ended up reading, has taken us to such an amazing round the world trip, and really quite the largest journal that I've ever made. And I think it's fun that some of this is out of order and some of it's not quite correct, because apparently when you go to the museum there are some paintings that are still not correctly numbered. It's as if it was unfinished, which of course it was. And so this is representative that some of the sequence isn't in order, the same as her gallery, but it is her express wish that the sequence of her story and her travels is always kept correctly, is always kept in order correctly, which is what I've done with the stories here in this playlist. So unfortunately, Marianne passed away never knowing whether her story was out there. So there we go, dear journalers. I believe that it is our duty to help Marianne get the story out to as many people as we can, because there is a strong message of conservation and perseverance and carrying on and having that inner strength to just keep going and to achieve all the things that you feel that you may not be able to do. It's just so worthwhile to have a go. that is what I'm taking away from this whole project, and I am absolutely so excited that I can now delve back into the wonderful journal and be able to remember the stories, because everything in here is a memory anchor for the study that I have just done with you about Marianne North in the 1800s. So there we go. It isn't exactly 100% complete, but then my journals never will be. They're personal to me and I love to dip into them. I shall get a better binding than this. And I will be doing a flip through video on this playlist as well, so that will happen very soon. I hope to do that this coming week. In the meantime, there is plenty going on. I have another beating drum in the craft room for attention of some old vintage letters that I have in my possession, and I feel that it's probably nearing the time for me to open up that drawer and let that story out, and we will have a look at that. So it's not goodbye to Marianne, because she is definitely here. This is Marianne the Journal. And I very haphazardly put together there, but I've thoroughly enjoyed this whole project, and I won't lie, I was in floods of tears when I was reading that final chapter. I had to stop and start and stop and start again, so it's an incredible story from a wonderful feminist point of view, and all the characters that she met along the way, from Charles Darwin, Edward Lear, and the wonderful painters and artists and bohemian types that she really connected in with. And there we go. So there's, everything has been said. It's a complete passion. It was absolutely a thrill to do, and I'm so pleased that I was able to bring you all along for the ride of the Marianne North Journal. It has been epic. It has been very tiring to do, and I'm very pleased to say that the journal is complete. So there we go. Pretty much nearly complete. The videos for this journal will be up on the playlist, and they will remain there forever. I have no intention of taking them down. So you have an audiobook, you have tutorials, you have just a resource for how to make a soft cover journal and the felting tips and everything. In hindsight, we probably needed a bigger cover, but then that was largely dictated to by the felt size that I had. And of course I had no idea that her story would be so extensive, and there we go. So that was discovering Marianne North's story along the way as I went, and not planning it out at all. It came together as if by magic. So there we go, journaling magic. Thank you very much for listening and joining me. I will be back with my next video very soon, and we'll be looking to build more journals and more stories, and all the things that we love on the treasured page will be coming soon. So thank you so much for everything. Do please subscribe if you found value here, and hit the like button and the bell and all of those things. But above everything else, guys, just slow down and make crafting time for you. Bye bye now.